So we start with a little prayer. Have we got the prayer there? Hang on a minute. Just a second. Yeah, good. Hang on a second. I just have to check something. All right. All right, here we are again to listen, think about, analyze, talk about, internalize Buddha's teachings about reality, about happiness, about suffering, about the mind, about what is real, what is not. Why are we doing this? So we can develop take these as tools, take this information as tools to help us develop our amazing potential. One, and then two, because everybody else is in the same boat, so we can help them all the way to leading them to enlightenment. This is the most altruistic motivation to have. So we have that one. But first we offer all the wonderful things of the world. Make an offering, make a gift to the Buddha as a request for the teachings. It has great meaning, very auspicious. So this mandala we offer. Shall I sing it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we just think the center, Laksam, all of us together offering to the Buddha this request for the teachings. Saji perki jugshing metog tramri rablingji ni de gyan padi sangye jingdu mi te ulwagi drokon nam dag jingla chapasho. Next one. We do this too. Good idea. Okay. Jetsun lama jampa kenam ki chaku kala ken se chutsin chik jita tsampe dul jetsin mala zabye chuki chapap tu so. And we imagine Buddha very happily accepts our offering. Hidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niyatayami. And now our motivation that I said before, this one. Sangye Charang Soke Chognam La Jancho Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Trunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Shok Sangye Charang Soke Chognam La Jancho Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drona Penche Sangye Drupa Shok Sangye Charang Toke Chognam La Jangcho Badu Dagni Kyab Suchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drona Penche Sangye Drupa Shok. All right. Okay. So, all right. Okay. So what did we talk about last week? Anybody did their study? Did anybody do your homework last week? Anybody did your homework? What did we talk about last week? Anybody remember? I don't. Anybody remember? I'm serious. What did we talk about last week?
We talked about karma.
Was it about karma?
Yes.
Also talk about attachment, the primordial level of attachment, the inner hunger to get what I want and pleasant things.
Was it our first one on the 8 worldly dharmas? Was it our first one or our second one?
We haven't gotten that far yet. But
that's
the attachment is the foundation of everything.
Okay, and this is our second one on that topic, or the second. Okay.
Today's the second day.
How many more have we got to go?
We haven't started with happiness or suffering officially.
But how many more have we got to go?
We got 8. Oh, we got 3. We got 3 more, including today is the second one, and we got 2 more.
Okay, good. Now I understand. Okay, good. I forgot. Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, we've called it the 8 worldly dharmas. We've talked about. We began talking about it. We did for sure. We began talking about it, and the thing is, and we certainly. I think the crucial thing is to understand. Like we talked last week, the crucial thing when you listen to the teachings, especially the way the Tibetans present it, is that you have to know where it fits. If you're studying math, we talked about this, but it's so important. And I think we really find this quite hard. When you study maths, you don't just jump into any old class. You read about a math class. Oh, I might go to that class. You've first got to know what level it is. You've got to know, is it your level? Is it before you or is it after you? Well, it's exactly the same with the teachings. And so this whole level, when we read Tibetan literature, you're going to read all the lamas and all the traditions, you're going to hear this term, 8 worldly dharmas. So it's kind of, like I said last week, it's a bit abstract. But what it is really about attachment. So attachment is Buddha's favorite topic, as far as the Buddha is concerned. When you study in the Four Noble Truths, which is in the like the wisdom wing, in the first part, in the second part of the Lamrim, when you're going to go into in depth suffering, its causes, how to be free of it, and what to do. So you're going to learn about it there. Effectively, as far as as Lama Zopa says, and as far as the Buddha is concerned, this mental illness, could be a shock to hear it like that. This mental illness called attachment is the main cause of suffering on this planet. So of course, if you go to your therapist, she won't tell you that. If you study psychology in the West, that you will not hear that. You'll never hear that even as a word having anything to do with suffering, because we can see that Buddha's whole approach is so radically different in many ways. Of course, we're used to hearing it as religion. So we won't hear it properly. We'll just hear it as some kind of vague belief. Or if we do hear it as religion, we hear it as kind of like heavy criticism, you're going to get punished. But I mean, Buddha's attempting to trying to get us to understand the mind. So what Buddha's expertise is, surprisingly, is the mind, is how it functions. So as far as he's concerned, as I'm sure we talked, you can divide all you learn this in the middle scope in high school. You learn this whole packaging, this really detailed presentation of the way the mind works. You've got the neurotic, deluded, negative, distressing, disturbing, ridiculous, ego-based, I-based, fear-based states of mind. Even that, we don't talk this way in our culture, And these for the Buddha are why we suffer. And then you have the valid, positive, virtuous, reasonable, appropriate states of mind, which are the cause of our happiness. Because as far as the Buddha is concerned, not the outside world, not your parents, not your genes, not your DNA, they're not the cause of your happiness, and they're not the main cause. They're not the main cause of your happiness, and they're not the main cause of your suffering. As far as the Buddha is concerned, the mind, what goes on in our mind. So Buddha's expertise is the mind. So as far as if you look at the Four Noble Truths, effectively, this attachment is the main cause of our suffering. But the crucial point is this: the 8 worldly dharmas, which is really taught in the Mahayana path, is taught in the more advanced level, because it's what it's presenting, and I'm sure we discussed this, because I just can't remember what we talked about last week. Exactly which point between this and the other teachings. I should have made a note. So the point is, attachment in the middle scope, when you learn about it, when you learn about the mind, you look up the different delusions, you're going to see one called attachment. You don't see a term called 8 worldly dharmas in there. You see the word called attachment. And mainly the emphasis in this level of practice, where we're learning to control our body, speech, and mind. This is the first stages of practice. In the first stages of practice, in the wisdom wing, in the junior school and high school, in the lowest and middle scope of this Lamrim, this packaging of the teachings, we're trying to control, as Lama Zopa calls it, the slaves of our delusions. Why? Our body and speech. Why? Because they do the harm. Why do you think you punch, kill, lie, steal, rape, eat too much cake, jump on too many boys? The body does that. The speech does it. But what drives it? The mind. So the real job of being a Buddhist, the heart job of being a Buddhist, would be where we become a Buddhist, as where we start working on our mind. But you've got to control the slaves first. You've got to control their servants first, because they're out of control. They do the harm. So you've got to control the body and speech. That's where you abide by the laws of karma. You really control your body, you control your speech, you live in vows, you do purification. This is an incredible ground level foundation, fundamental practice. Without this, you can't go further. Then you get to high school and you start learning to be your own therapist. Lama Yeshe's wonderful phrase, be your own psychologist. You start to unpack and unravel your mind based upon Buddha's very distinct view of the mind. It's a very precise presentation. And you have to study all this. You have to learn all this, you know. So then in the Mahayana path, when we're learning now, in the Mahayana path, we're learning to continue to work on the mind. There's not a fraction of difference. We continue from the beginning to end, from A to Z in Buddhism. You're working on your mind. You're lessening the delusions and you're growing the goodness. That's really the essence of being a Buddhist. It seems almost too simple. It's embarrassing, but that's the essence of being a Buddhist. So in the Mahayana path, they then present this more primordial way, more pervasive way of presenting, of how attachment functions. And that's the 8 worldly dharmas, you know. Did we actually go, I'm so sorry, I really can't remember. Did we go into detail about the 8 worldly dharmas? Tali, you seem to, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
We didn't, okay. So I probably gave this background about the Lam Rim and everything, did I? Good, okay. So, okay, let's start.
It was introduction.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry, Venerable. Yes, we did go through the small scope and medium scope. We did. We got the background info, background teachings on.
Okay, because this
we didn't go into specifics yet.
Good, good. So this is unbelievably important to do, to know where all the attachment teachings come from, because attachment in its nature is not a Mahayana teaching. You see, this is why you have to see where all the teachings belong. Attachment is in the middle scope where you learn about the mind. That's where you learn the mind. You learn, you study low rig. You go into all the details about the delusions, the virtues, how they function. You look into the epistemological model of the mind. It's very detailed, very marvelous view of how the mind functions. That's what you do in the middle scope, high school, like I call it, the wisdom wing, which is all about learning yourself to control your body, your speech, and your mind. And why would you do that? Because you are sick of suffering. That's what drives the first level of practice, because you're sick of suffering. That's what renunciation is. You get renunciation from accomplishing junior school and high school. You get renunciation of suffering and its causes by learning about karma, by living in vows, by purifying, and then learning about your mind and knowing and distinguishing between the delusions and the virtues. That's the bottom line. Now, you continue to work on your mind. That never stops all the way to Buddhahood. You continue to work on your mind. But the difference in the compassion wing, the emphasis now is on breaking down the barriers between self and other. The first stage is you're backing off and leaving sentient beings alone. You're controlling yourself, your body, speech, and mind. Back off, mind your own business, zip your lip, keep your hands to yourself because you don't want further suffering. The sentient beings benefit. As Lama Zopa says, the rats and cockroaches will have a party because you leave them in peace. But your aim is not for their benefit yet, it's for your benefit. Now the compassion wing, you keep working on your mind. You keep ridding out the delusions. There's never a question of that, all the way to Buddhahood. But now the emphasis is on to help you break down the barriers between self and other because you want to benefit others now. So it's in this framework, in the more advanced levels of the compassion wing, that you learn about this more primordial, more pervasive way that attachment functions. And that's framed as the 8 worldly dharmas. And it's such a cute phrase. I mean, when I first heard it, I just thought, what are these Tibetans talking about? You know, I had no interest. So it was just talking about attachment, how it functions in 8 different ways. There are 4 pairs, basically 4 ways in which attachment literally pervades our life. And this is what, in the beginning, it's very hard to hear this because we take as a given that we're an ordinary human being on this planet, and then we have attachment. We eat too much cake, we jump on too many boys, we've got to control ourselves. That's good enough, good start. But the Buddhist understanding of attachment is way more pervasive than that, way more subtle. I mean, if we understand even back in the middle scope, you learn about the 4 noble truths. We learn that, you know, if we have the big picture of the universe, the way Buddha sees it, not just the humans having suffering and being happy, but the whole big deal of samsara, all the different realms of existence. All of this, you know, we understand. This is important to understand. So let's say this now. This gives us a bigger framework. That this whole universe, this actual physical planet we live on, from the Buddhist perspective, is the product of countless lifetimes of attachment. We've literally created, karma's like personal evolution. So we've literally created this planet This is why Buddha calls it the whole of all the realms of suffering in samsara, in the desire realm, as he calls it. There's a much bigger picture view, you know. This is desire is another word for attachment. An attachment over eons of lifetimes. We have literally caused this entire planet. We have caused this body. Look at this body. It is a body made by attachment. It's got 5 senses. Look, 5 holes that demand feeding. This is, and the external world, look at it, is literally the 5 sense objects. What do you think the physical world is? The 5 sense objects, the things that we ingest with our 5 senses, you know. So we've created this world because there's no creator. It's not just physical evolution. It's not a creator running the show. We, sentient beings, over eons of lifetimes, due to our mind, have created the experiences we have. That's karma. We create it. We create the universe. We create the experiences. Literally, our minds do it, you know, individually and collectively. I mean, it's a pretty cosmic idea. That's the Buddha's view about karma. Self-creation, as His Holiness likes to call it, you know. So anyway, when we start, even in high school, in the middle school, we start to see how pervasive attachment is. And therefore, all the other delusions, because the model of the mind in Buddhism, you know, you got Buddha talks about the 3 poisons, the 3 toxic emotions. There's the root delusion, which we have to talk about when we get, you know, about, which is implying emptiness. This is how we uproot that one. The root delusion, hang on. The root delusion, ego grasping, one that causes all the problems in the first place. There's this misconception about the very nature of who we are. Then the next one, the main one, is then the craving and the bottomless pit of attachment to get what that fantasy I wants. That's what drives the show. That's what runs the show. In the beginning, in the middle scope, we learned to harness it and try not to have too much cake and try not to have too many boys and try not to have too much alcohol. We try to calm it down. We try to control it. Now in the 8 worldly Dharmas, and on the compassion wing, we start to look more pervasively because the assumption is we're looking more deeply at our minds. So so basically attachment at this level, attachment basically is then this, it's actually an assumption deep in the bones of our being. It's an assumption. It's the main assumption. And it's the assumption based upon the deepest assumption of an intrinsic, definite, concrete me. That gives rise to this next assumption that fantasy me must get what it wants every millisecond. I mean, without exception. There's not a second you could argue that attachment's not functioning in one degree or another. Maybe not that overt. Maybe pride might be the most overt delusion you're experiencing at this moment, but we can bring them all down. They all kind of connect to each other. There's no way in the universe you'd have pride if you didn't have attachment. Maybe anger's the main one. Maybe jealousy at that moment is the main one running the show. But all of those, you wouldn't have them if you didn't have attachment. They're utterly linked to each other, utterly related psychologically. And this is very important to understand, you know. So attachment is this assumption, effectively, even the summary of these 8, it's an assumption that this I, which Buddha says we've made up, must get what it wants every millisecond. And why? Because we assume when it gets what it wants, happiness, good feelings are the result. So really you could argue that attachment is this junkie in us, but its job is to find every second something, usually out there, such that when we get it, happy feelings come. So it's a junkie that wants happy feelings. The cake, you could argue the attachment is for the cake. The attachment is for the praise, and we're going to go into this, but really it's for the happy feelings that come as a result, that we assume that will come as a result. And happy feelings, I don't know if we went into that, but it's important to understand, we've only got 3 kinds of feelings. The way Buddhism uses this word very specifically, there's happy feelings, pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, and then there's neutral feelings. Well, let's forget the neutral. Couldn't care less here. Forget the neutral right now. We've only got the happy and the unhappy, the pleasant and the unpleasant, the happiness, the suffering. Happiness and suffering are literally feeling. There's a feeling in here, and we are frantic only for the happy ones. And we are frantic to be free of the suffering ones. That's the essence of attachment. And it's utterly primordial. And so this 8 is a way of breaking them down. So the first 2 are this assumption that happiness is when I get what is happiness is those we've got to have those happy feelings. And the millisecond, so attachment's always trying to get them. And then the millisecond an unhappy feeling comes, then attachment continues, but now its job is to attempt to be free of those unpleasant feelings. It's completely primordial. The next 2 are specific about constant attachment, craving to get things. And then when you're not getting, the attachment shifts to craving to be free of not getting things. But it's the last 2, it seems to me. I mean, the first one is like the most pervasive, covers everything almost. But these last 2 are really kind of very blatant and very powerful in our lives. This next 2 is we are constantly craving pleasant sounds with our name in them. It's called praise. It's called praise, And the millisecond we hear unpleasant sounds with our name in them, attachment shifts to craving to be free of hearing those unpleasant sounds. I mean, it sounds kind of so technical, so clinical, but look at our lives. Some of the worst suffering we have is when we're criticized. People say bad words about us. It is like unbearable pain. We are desperate to hear good words, frantic, hungry. And some of us, of course, all of us have got different ways, with these. Some of us are more hungry for that, some more for this. And the last 2, really, I think this is the last 2. This is really the most pervasive of this attachment, these ways, these 8. And initially it seems ridiculous, like, oh, I don't have that. It's called attachment to reputation. So praise is one thing, it sounds, but reputation, meaning, is how you're seen and treated by others, how you're seen and treated. So this attachment is this junkie, and this I think is the most pervasive. And we start to see our minds, and it's the hardest to see because it's so totally there all the time. We just take it as a given. We don't notice it. It's this constant yearning to be seen as a good girl, to be seen as a nice person. So this is the one, the Lamas, the way they talk about it in the teachings, that when we start to identify these 8, I mean, attachment at this pervasive level, basically, but specifically in this way of functioning, these just drive everything we do. So this is especially, of course, in relation to others. This is the one of praise and the one of reputation is all about other sentient beings. This is not about eating too much cake. It's not about, stealing money. It's not about, things. It's about our relationships with human beings. So the deepest one, it seems to me, the deepest one is this 4th one. I think they say it's the last one to go. The last attachment, because you see all these delusions are intimately linked. Ego grasping, the root delusion, when the ignorance that believes in the intrinsic me, the immediate response of that one, the one that's the delusion that's closest to that, is attachment. So when we can see it in relation to this constant assumption, that I, about an I. The irony is Buddha is telling us, because there is no intrinsic I, we think there is. This is why we're so bereft. This is why we're so desperate. This is why we're so full of fear, because we're believing in something that doesn't exist. So the attachment is the junkie in us to try and get that, to get what that we think that fantasy I wants every millisecond. And so the one of a reputation is enormous. Since we're born, we've got this one, this constant assumption, because one of the functions of ego grasping is to feel separate. It sounds so peculiar because we think, well, of course we're separate. I'm a different person. Yeah, we are. But the Buddha says that's the worst delusion. It's completely schizophrenic. We're not separate, but we think we are. And it's delusions that make us separate. And the point is, when we understand all these delusions, they are feeling miserable. They are not happy. They're desperate and bereft and lonely and frantic and miserable and feeling nothing. And that's the main energy of attachment. So like we might have talked before when we learn about the mind in middle scope, when attachment is multifaceted. And the deepest level of attachment is dissatisfaction. As Lama Zopa says, it's the main suffering in the modern world. Dissatisfaction. It sounds kind of boring, but it is the main energy of attachment. And why we have dissatisfaction is because we've practiced trying to get what attachment wants for eons. And because you can't get what attachment wants, as my mother used to say about food when I was a kid, the more you get, the more you want. So even in the middle scope, we learn the bottomless pit of attachment is that the more you try to get that thing to get satisfaction, just like a junkie for heroin, a person who's attached to food, a person who's attached to alcohol, a person who's attached to sex, it's really obvious. The more you crave it and then you get it, you end up with even more disappointment and even more craving. This is something we have to prove to ourselves in the middle scope where we start to try to get renunciation, because attachment is the method not to get happy. It's the attachment to get more dissatisfied. So because we've practiced it for eons, we wake up in this life with this primordial dissatisfaction. And what does it mean, dissatisfaction? I'm not enough. I don't have enough. Whatever I get, it's not enough. Whatever I do, it's not enough. Whatever I achieve, it's not enough. Look at us. The default assumption we have is we're not enough, not good enough, not big enough, not thin enough, not fat enough, not beautiful enough. And when it comes to people, when we see it when it comes to people, this one of approval, this one of praise and approval, these are stupendously powerful in our lives. Because why? Why do we crave somebody else praising me? Why do we crave having a good reputation in somebody else's eyes? We've got to analyze why. Why would we rely upon? Why do we rely upon someone else telling me, Rabina, you're a really good person? Why do we need that so badly so that we can feel I am a good person? You've got to ask that question. I mean, like Lama Yeshe would often say schizophrenic. People get offended when I say it like this, because I know it's got different ways in the world. I'm talking about its definition. But Lama meant this terrible disconnect between who we are and how we see who we are. This is the suffering of all these delusions. So it's one of craving to be seen as a good girl. Since we're born, we've had that. And it manifests, we've all got it, but in all of us, it kind of manifests in all different ways, you know. Some of us have that more than anything. Some people are more attached to food. Some people are more attached to, overtly at least, more attached to money, more attached to physical, like sex, you know. But the deepest one, the most primordial, and some of us experience this as our main one, is this constant feeling like a hole inside us. We often call, especially, so what we do, of course, in our analysis in the West, we look back into the past and see why we're feeling so bereft. What happened when we were little? We call it feeling of, what do we call it? Abandonment. People have this with their relationships, always feeling like people abandon you, people leave you, people give up on you. So there's this terrible feeling of sadness and loneliness, and I'm not enough, like a big hole in us that we have to fill. That's the energy of attachment. That's the energy of attachment. It is our worst mental illness. Because the Buddha, Lama Yeshe said, I can tell you about attachment for one whole year. You'll never begin to understand it until we start to go deep inside, you know. So, of course, what we're addicted to is we believe we are not enough. We believe there is a hole in there. So then we are frantically looking for things to fill it up. And because we remember our mother gave us up when we were a little girl, we were abandoned, and then the father abandoned us, and then the boyfriend. So naturally we assume it's because of mummy doing that and daddy doing this and the boyfriend doing that. No, they did do that. But the main cause of the suffering is this assumption, this terrible, deep, primordial assumption that the mother, the father, the brother, the boyfriend, the boss, the stranger in the shop who doesn't look properly at you, we think they are the problem. And this like being stabbed in the heart, this terrible feeling, oh my God, yet again, look at it. People aren't approving of me. I must be not enough. So the energy itself of believing I'm not enough is the problem. So having that problem, you'll keep meeting people who will reject you. It's the mind that's the problem, and this is what's so hard to see, you know. So our main suffering, so if we look at karma, we've got 4 ways that our karma ripens, 3 ways in this life. The first way our karma ripens, we've got a human body. Okay, that's great. Now within this life, there are 3 other ways that karma ripens. And when we can understand these 3, I can't stress it enough. It's incredibly powerful in enabling us to understand our experiences. It's not enough to say, oh yeah, it's all due to karma. Yeah, it's all karma. It's not enough. It's like saying, oh yeah, why is that a rose in a garden? Oh, that's botany. Can you explain it? No. What good is saying botany if you can't explain why there's a rose? If you can't explain why you have all these types of relationships with people, then you can't understand karma. So the way the karma is, one way our karma from the past ripens is in our tendencies, the personality we have. That's the fruit of our past action. So attachment here is the one we're talking about, for example, this strong habit of attachment. Then the next one is called experiences similar to the cause. And now that's where all the people in our lives come in. So first of all, there's who you are in yourself, your own tendencies. That's from your habits in the past. Now we are very social beings. From the second we're conceived, we're relating to other beings. We have a mummy and a daddy. Then we come out of the womb and we have, you know, aunties and uncles and nurses and neighbors, and then there's rats and mosquitoes. We're living around other sentient beings the whole time. It's our lives. So how we relate to those sentient beings and how they relate to us is, you know, most of our suffering and happiness. Think about it. Think about it. And it's got nothing to do with who you are in here. They're 2 separate things. So we have this assumption that if I'm a nice person and I never lie, then of course people must believe my words. And that's why we're so shattered when they don't believe my words. But I told the truth. Why don't they believe me? We can't believe the pain. I mean, so the main thing is because we are this separate sense of me, because of ego grasping, because of samsara, we live our lives in relation to how other people see us. So attachment is this junkie that's frantically trying to get all the people out there to see me, to believe my words, to see me as nice, to like me, to love me, to give me things. We just crave that continuously, the assumption being that that's how I get happy. And look at our lives. People reject us. People leave us. People don't believe us. People steal from us. People brutalize us. People harm us. People rape us. Bad things happen to every single sentient being in the universe. So this is why we're so shattered. We can't believe it, especially if we think, quote unquote, I don't deserve it. Look at me. I don't lie. Why don't they believe me? I don't steal. Why don't they pay their debt? I'm being kind to my husband. Why does he beat me? We go mad because we assume if I'm a nice person in here, nice things should happen to me. We don't understand it. We go absolutely out of our brains. So before we get anywhere near the 8 worldly dharmas, before we even get anywhere near understanding attachment in high school, we've got to understand karma, at least why do things happen? Without that, you can't even understand the 8 worldly dharmas properly. This is too difficult. All these views all fit together beautifully, you know. So we can begin to understand that one, I am who I am now from a bunch of different habits. So I lie, I kill, I'm kind, I'm generous, I'm good at music, good at football. Get to know who you are. That's high school. Learn to know your mind well. Own what's there. That's one thing. Then there's the other. Yes, we can see some relationship. If I am being kind now, many people will respond nicely to that. But then we're so puzzled when some people don't, because that's why we have this big question, why do bad things happen to good people? It blows our minds. We can't understand it. But we've got to look at, so then here we've got to, so the one of the 8 worldly dharmas is looking into more subtly into our mind. And really when we become our own therapist and we start to meditate and we start to take responsibility and we start to know that what goes on in here is the main source of my happiness and suffering. So then we learn to grasp less at all these massive expectations all day from this outside world. Because attachment is this junkie that wants the outside world to behave exactly as I need in order for me to feel happy. Think about it. So we go crazy. Why are we all getting so depressed? And we look in the papers, we read things we can't stand, we hate the politicians, we go to work, people are mean to us, we come home, auntie's mean to us, the husband does the wrong thing. We agonize, we go crazy, you know, trying to work out. So so karma explains why they happen. You must have done that before. Karma also explains why people love you. Karma also explains why if you are lying, but you have the particular karma called experiences similar to the cause, which is this one, the out there one, from past telling the truth, that people believe you. I always think about Mr. Trump. I mean, you know, people say Mr. Trump lies. I have no idea. Perhaps he does, perhaps he doesn't. But people say he lies. I mean, even the Washington Post is tracking all his lies since he started. 42,000 lies or whatever, tracking exactly, you know. They call them the Pinocchios. They're tracking them. So but it's interesting. In this last election, you know, 70 million people voted for Mr. Trump. 70 million people want Mr. Trump. Many, many people believe exactly anything Mr. Trump says. So, of course, the people who believe he's lying think they're all insane. But that's due to Mr. Trump's karma from past lives of telling the truth in relation to those people. So whatever he says, they believe him. That's why good things happen to bad people. Why people who lie are seen as speaking the truth. Equally, why people are telling the truth are seen as lying. Because one thing is who you are in here, and the other one is the karma you have. And they're two separate tracks of karma. Of course, they're related, but it's not a direct relationship. Not a direct relationship. But the thing we're looking at here in the 8 worldly dharmas, especially this fourth pair, this craving to be seen in a good light. So that when it's so primordial, then what they're saying is that every second of the day, when you're with your family, when you're with your husband, when you're with your children, when you're with your neighbors and your mummy and your daddy and going down the bus and in the bus and on the train and going home, everywhere where there are other beings, there's this constant yearning, there's this constant craving deep in our bones, every second that's watching like a hawk and adjusting our behavior to make that person look like they think I'm nice. I mean, it's like no wonder we're exhausted by the end of the day. It's constantly yearning for whoever's there to think I'm a nice person. So we adjust our behavior to make sure they think I'm a nice person. That's why we become completely inauthentic. We don't even know what we feel because we're so frantically trying to get people to like us. So, I mean, that's why we go mad. This is the deepest one. So to get praise is one thing, because I mean, to hear sounds of praise with your name, that's very direct. But the more pervasive one, when you're driving the car on a freeway among utter strangers in a big mechanical box, you can't even see the driver's face and they toot you. We think it's natural to get upset. Oh, that's natural. No, it's not. It's because a person who is a stranger actually indicated that they don't like you. We have a panic attack. We are so fragile, in other words. Having this attachment, it makes us such a fragile, frantic, desperate person that we can't even cope with one person whom we have never met, whose face we can't even see, that they dare to toot the horn because they're showing that they don't like us. We have a panic attack. That's attachment. I mean, loneliness. What do you think loneliness is, you know? Every second, a person who's lonely, we're looking at the delusions. We're not looking at the virtues. It's marvelous to have friends. It is marvelous to have people who praise us. It is marvelous to be loved and seen as good. We need all that to boost us and to grow as human beings. But if we see it only through the lenses of attachment, we're like junkies and we can never get enough. And whatever you get, it won't nourish you. You just drags you down to hell. This is why we go mad. So loneliness, think about it. It means you've got no one to share things with. You've got no one to talk about your feelings with. You've got no one to go to the movies with. You've got no one to touch, no one to look at, no one to smile at you. So we have to ask the question. It's not being horrible. We have to be very clear. We've got to ask the question, what is it about me that is not enough until someone else says it's enough? In other words, we don't believe we are valid until someone says, you did a good job, Robina. Think about it. We think it's normal. So we assume, because there's no one around me to share my thoughts, that somehow I'm worthless. We believe that utterly without doubt. It's completely insane. You know, if your thoughts, if what you feel and what you do and what you think about and what you like is not worthy until you do it with someone else. If it's not worthy, then why would you want to share it with somebody else? I mean, it really is demented, but this is what we all are. It's all completely natural. It's completely natural. We all believe it's natural, and it is natural, but we don't get to the root of it, which is the attack, and all a symptom of this bottomless pit of craving. And the craving, why would you crave something? Is because you feel you're lacking something. What do you think attachment is? Whether it's food or anything, you feel empty. You feel like not enough. You don't feel like you are enough. So of course you crave something because you assume when I get it, I'll feel enough. But that's the rotten lie of attachment. It's a lie. It's a complete misconception. But this one of craving to be seen as a good girl, it drives most of our decisions. It makes us completely inauthentic. It makes us miserable. We don't even know what we feel. We're desperate for other people's approval. Because we get approval, we think, oh, if we get approval, if someone smiles and says, oh, that was a good thing to do, Robina, you go, oh, wow, now I can do it. I've got permission to do it. In other words, we need people's permission to even exist. That's how deep attachment is. So to have the courage, that's why, you know, like in different times, like you might stand up, like at work, let's say, and everybody can't stand that one person. Everybody wants to join the group of who doesn't like that person because you're the majority. Because you want to be, in Australia, we call it, you want to be in the same mob, you know, this mob, this group of people. You like to be in the right mob. Oh no, she's the ugly one, you know, you don't want to go near her. Nobody's got the courage to like her, to stand up, you know, or to think freshly. I wonder what she is like. We always thought this taking sides, you know, because we want to be in the group that is in the big group, the main group. So we have no courage to say anything, to do anything, to act authentically. We don't even know what we want to do. We don't even know what we think we should do. All we're worried about is what we should do in terms of, let's say, look at the family pressure, the immensity of family pressure. It's like hideous, you know. If you've got really strong family, let's say, and we're talking about people having faults, not, you know, the world's got faults. Your family are really, your mother, you know, really proud. They're determined you must do this and you must have that reputation. You've got to do that job and this profession. And you would never even dream of ever thinking of doing anything that mummy doesn't want. You even can't stand what you're doing, but you don't even recognize you don't want to do it because you just want to make mummy happy. And you think by doing what mummy says, somehow you'll be a good thing, you know. I remember reading about one Australian nurse years ago in England or something. And she was working with the dying people. And she wrote a book called The 5 Greatest Regrets of the Dying. And the greatest regret was not doing what I felt was the right thing for me or doing the right thing, but it was doing what I thought was expected of me. That's the one of reputation. That's the one of being afraid to do what other people don't expect, that are doing against what other people expect. Because we can't stand not being approved of. It's the most horrible, it's the worst terror for us. And this is so primordial, you know, so deeply assumed inside us. Attachment, they call it attachment to reputation. So it's what holds us back from being authentic. It's what holds us back from really growing ourselves, from really even beginning to look into our minds to know what is valid and what is not, what is virtuous and what is not, what is ethical, what is not, what is the right thing to do, what is not, you know. I don't know, what do you think, people? Do you recognize it? Any questions? There's different ways. I've got it written up here, a bunch of different ways that the Lamas talk about the 8 worldly Dharmas, you know. They all say them slightly differently. Let me just read them out to you. Slightly different ways. The Lamas talk about these 4 pairs, you know. Where are they? Not there. Can't find it. Different lamas say different things. Can't find it. I thought I had it up here. No, chasing Buddha DVD. No. Texts. First scope. Middle scope. No, I can't find. The lamas say different things. Are there any questions anyway? Are there any questions? Are there any questions so far in general? I'm just talking about it very generally, you know. Are there any questions?
Hello, Robina. Can you see
Yeah.
me?
Who is it?
Here, Mervi Christina.
Christina. I can't see
Yes,
your face.
Mervi. Can you waving?
Oh, I can't see. I have to look. Usually a green box goes around, but I can't see the
Oh.
green. Never mind. I can hear you, sweetheart. Talk to me.
Okay, so just going back to the karma, you mentioned that experience is similar to the causes,
Yes, yes.
and then you said there are two separate sets of karma: my personal karma, and then other people's karma. And then you gave this, yeah.
No, sorry. I know I say things so quickly. I don't say them clear enough. What I mean is this, again, Christina, in this life, you could divide all your experiences every second of the day into 3 separate tracks. Put it this way. The first one, you look into you've got a mind, right? You can look at all your tendencies. You can see maybe you lie, maybe you're kind, maybe you're loving, maybe you don't lie, maybe you like football, maybe you're good at music. You've got lots of personal tendencies, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first way your past karma ripens. You're a bunch of habits. You come into this life programmed with past habits. So they're your tendencies. So that's often called the type of karma is called the intentions or the tendencies similar to the cause. Why are you good at music? You must have done it before. Why do you lie? You must have done it before. So we've got these habits. So we've got to really we've got to learn to know our minds well and see what our tendencies are and work on our minds. You get my point there? That's clear, isn't it?
Yes.
Next one, darling. Next one, you go out into the world. Now we see we're very social beings and we interact with others all our lives, don't we? Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Next way our karma ripens is in terms of how we're seen and treated by others. And it's called experiences similar to the cause. So you might have a tendency to lie. You might also have a tendency to not be believed. So that not being believed is not from now, that's from some past habit of lying. You might maybe people are generous to you. They give you things. That's not because you're a nice, generous person now. Maybe you're not generous now, but that's from being generous in the past life. So however you're seen and treated by others is from past karma, and however you are in your own mind is also from past karma. They're 2 separate tracks of karma. Are you with me here?
Yes, got it.
The third one is called environmental karma. It's the way the very physical world impacts upon us. You with me? So let's just use one example of one negative action called killing. So the first way it would ripen in this life would be you might have a tendency to kill. You might kill the rats and kill the cockroaches or whatever, or kill your ex-boyfriend, whatever. You might have, and most humans kill something, certainly when it comes to little creatures. Do you understand my point? That's from past killing. So that's how it would ripen as a tendency. You keep doing it. Now, the next way your karma ripens of killing, if you've got that karma, is that you would get killed or you would die young. You with me? So in this life, you haven't died yet. Your non-killing karma as an experience is still ripening. You're still alive. No one's killed you yet, and you still haven't died yet. So do you understand what I'm saying? So the third way that killing would ripen is in an environmental sense. You'd get sick. The food would harm you. The air's polluted. The water's polluted. You have an allergy to peanuts. You get COVID-19, you can't, or even though the environmental karma now of COVID-19, look at the whole world is experiencing the environmental result in our own particular lives. We can't even kiss our own brother anymore because you might die. He's like poison. He's polluted in a way because you might have COVID-19. So even the physical world now, including all the humans in it, for us right now, all collectively, we're experiencing the fruits of past killing in terms of the environment being very polluted. You understand what I'm saying? But the ones who die from COVID-19 now, they're the ones who are experiencing the result of past killing. But those of us who don't get COVID-19 and don't get sick and don't die, we don't have the karma of killing. So every action we do, you've got these three separate results. One is in your own tendency, another is it'll happen to you, and the third is even the physical world, how it impacts upon you. The whole world is driven by this law. Are you with me here?
I am. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
The way the suffering we have so badly here, we can see with this particular attachment, this primordial attachment necessarily is related to the outside world. I mean, no, it's not. No, not only we're attached to our own body. You know, we're attached to the body being a certain way. That's one of our major attachments. Look at our dissatisfaction. I'm never enough. We look in the mirror. We're never enough. We're never beautiful enough. Never good enough. Never fat enough. Never thin enough. We're always dissatisfied. We see ourselves through the lens of dissatisfaction. That's the most primordial attachment. And the attachment to me and this body is the main reason we suffer at death. You don't suffer from attachment to reputation at death. You suffer from attachment to this body. That's the main reason there's so much fear. But this particular way, I wish I had these different pairs. I'm so sorry, I wasn't ready for today's class. You can see that. I wish I had these, I'll have to find it. These different ways the lamas present. We'll do that next week, don't worry about it. We'll maybe have a 5-minute break and I'll find it then. So, okay, so the first pair, so let's just look at forget the reputation one now, forget the praise one. Let's look at the first one, which is this constant craving for good feelings. Think about this. This is the one that's there all the time. It's completely instinctive, you know. All the time we desperately get good feelings, meaning we've got to feel nice feelings. We've got to feel, don't even call it happiness. We wouldn't even call it happiness. I mean, as soon as you get a slight pain in your knee, we get distressed, don't we? As soon as the eyes, I mean, you know, your eyes might hurt, or the noise is too loud, or, you know, something wrong with your ear, or, you know, you've got a pain in the knee, the tiniest thing, that's an unpleasant feeling. So attachment is the default that always just only wants pleasant feelings every second. And you think about it, it's so natural. And it seems like depressing to even point it out. When you're walking and you feel something, you know, you're sitting in a chair. I'm sitting in a chair, right? And I'm mentally noting that there's no bad pain. So my attachment's getting what it wants, which is the pleasant feelings. But the second, maybe I stress too much on my left buttock, so it starts to get pins and needles. That second, unpleasant feelings arise, and I'll automatically adjust my body to make the pain go away, won't I? We live our lives like this. This is the most another primordial level of just the physical body. We've got to have pleasant feelings all the time. We can't stand the temperature to be too hot. It can't stand to be too cool. You know, we're always adjusting the body and adjusting the outside to make sure attachment gets what it wants, which is a pleasant feeling. I mean, it seems kind of like cruel to even think, but shouldn't I do that? Isn't that normal? Who wants the pain in their knee? That's not the issue. It's this because we're trying to stop suffering. And Buddha's telling us that suffering isn't the pain in the knee. Suffering isn't from the high temperature. Suffering isn't from the abusive boyfriend. The suffering is because of the depth of the craving to not have abuse, to not have a pain in the knee, to not have a high temperature. So we're always adjusting everything to try to get those pleasant feelings. And what Buddha's saying is, that's the main result of all that is more dissatisfaction, more attachment, less happiness. It's just like a junkie trying to have another fix. Just by the time you're a junkie, you just got to get the fix just to get your body to some kind of level of sanity. You know, otherwise you're going completely crazy. That's what attachment is. So every second of the day, we're driven by attachment. To get the pleasant feeling, to be free of the unpleasant feeling, to get something nice, to be free of not getting something, to get the praise, to be free of not getting praise, to be free of getting unpraised, to have good reputation, and to be free of not having a good reputation. It's just 4 different ways of presenting the pervasiveness of attachment. So in other words, Buddha's talking about it in such a subtle way that for us, it's virtually being normal. All of these things, we factor in all of this as being the behavior of a normal person. So that shows how more subtle Buddha's view is, how much more nuanced Buddha's view about attachment is, you know. So when you hear extreme examples, then it makes it so stark for us. So for example, at the moment, a book I'm working on, trying to finish writing, we started years ago. I was working with Geshe Tenzin Zopa, the main attendant of a young Geshe, main attendant of Geshe Lama Kontrok. I don't know if anybody even met him in the years. He passed away in 2001. He was a great yogi. Lama Zopa said he lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land, and his fame. He was lived in Kopan the last 20 years of his life. He was very close to Lama Yeshe. They knew each other at Sarah J Monastery. So he's very unusual person. He was when you met him at Kopan, he was like this grumpy old grandfather, very, very wrinkled, quite tall for a Tibetan, but really grumpy. Like he looked like very grumpy, you know, and he was kind of scary, very direct, no nonsense. He looked like an old man walking slowly, you know. He hung around with the dogs. He showed no interest in it. He looked like he was just nothing, a country bumpkin. When in reality, Lama Zopa said he lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. He was this amazing, unbelievable tantric yogi. So when he left, since a little boy in Tibet, in Sarah Monastery, he was already highly realized, it looked like, you know, and then he worked all those years in the monastery, studying all the texts, doing all the tantric initiations, doing all his retreats, getting everything into his mind stream, because, you know, they memorize everything. So he had all the main practices, all the main texts, did all the things, got as far as he could go up to the middle way in the monastery to become a Geshe. And then 1959 happened. So then he escaped. And he came briefly to India, but then basically he was Trijang Rinpoche, this junior tutor to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Lama Yeshe's main guru, Root Guru, also his Root Guru. He told him to go into retreat. So he, on the way back from Tibet, when he first came from Tibet to India, Nepal, he went via this little place way up in the border, right up on the map of Nepal, up the top kind of corner, but right on the border of Tibet, where Milarepa used to meditate, called the Cave of the Doves. There's a whole area of caves, utterly isolated, you know, 3 meters of snow in the winter, you know, totally up in the mountains, 10,000 meters, 8,000 meters, whatever, totally, utterly isolated. Nobody on the planet would go there except a few villages, you know. So he had a dream, and Milarepa guided him to go to this place. So he went there, and he basically, the first 6 years, he lived in a hole in the wall, no door in the front, just a little hole. And he meditated. He ended up having no food, no sleep, no clothes, nothing. He lived naked, 6 foot, 3 meters of snow in the winter, 2 meters of snow in the winter, naked. So one of the chapters, so anyway, the book's about him, and it's spoken in the voice of his disciple, this little boy, who now is a Geshe. But it was so moving to hear about it. First of all, you hear, what the hell is somebody doing that for? What is he doing? We can't even imagine what they're doing. But there's a very moving chapter in there when the little boy, when the Geshe Zopa, the attendant who writes the book, I mean, I'm writing the book, but it's in his voice. He goes on a pilgrimage from Kopan to up where he used to meditate 20 years, 30 years before that. So it's so powerful because it's in the voice of Tenzin Zopa, this 13-year-old boy going to these different caves up in this area of Tibet, of Nepal. And you hear it in his voice that it's like it's completely bitterly cold, freezing, ugly. There's nothing there. These holes in the wall, just rocks. And you try and imagine living there he was there for sort of 20 years in 3 different caves, naked, no food, no sleep. Unbelievable, but he was in complete bliss. Now this for us, it's like science fiction, right? Who in the name of heaven would ever even imagine possibly wanting to live like this? What in the name of God is this man doing? We can't even imagine it, you know. But when you can see it through his eyes and realize that's what that's pointing to, is the level of unbelievable, intense power of our mind, that what he was doing was completely giving up every atom, every shred of anything to do with attachment. So why? So he could spend 24 hours a day working on his mind at the subtlest level to become the Buddha as quickly as possible, because he's driven by this incredible attachment. Compassion, that only wants to become a Buddha as quickly as possible because he wants to be of benefit to sentient beings. So it's like we read all these words about compassion and giving up attachment, but when you hear extreme examples like that, in other words, he was exactly the same as Milarepa. Now, people love to read about Milarepa, you know. He wrote all these wonderful songs and poetry. But it's inconceivable. Like the way Tenda Zopa says, even 5 minutes sitting in this ugly place in a rocky wall, what would you do all that time? And he was there for 20 years. And one of his caves, because the locals found him and they chucked rocks at him, so he had to go away and find another private place, because these yogis only want to meditate. Why? Not because they're being self-centered, because they're trying to rip out attachment, rip out delusions, rip out all the stuff so they can become Buddha as quickly as possible. 24 hours a day. So, but the point is, the bonus is, because he can completely control his body, completely control the subtler energies. So he's completely toasty and warm with 2 meters of snow around him. No wonder he was so wrinkled. He looked so wrinkled and weather beaten. And he was in bliss the whole time, because his mind is clairvoyant. He's in touch with all the Buddhas. He's completely in bliss the whole time. But, and just, it's hard to imagine. That's giving up attachment, okay? So way to go. Just to hear extreme examples is like insane. Even when you hear Lama Zopa about who doesn't sleep, but he lives in a house with food and people take care of him. It looks like he's comfy, but he could live like that. And it was just, it's hard to imagine it, because even 5 minutes of pain we can't bear, And we don't have methods in our psychological models to deal with this type of approach, because we just call it normal. We call it normal. But it's, for Buddha, it's mental illness, extreme mental illness, extreme suffering. I mean, it sounds so brutal and so extreme to talk this way, But I remember Milarepa said, whatever the Dharma is, the world is opposite, So the thing is, we've got to start where we are. We have to be reasonable. But that's why, if we like Buddhism, we want to study it, then we've got to really understand, intellectually even, the depth of these delusions, the depth of karma. This is Buddha's view. It's so radical in many ways, really insane. But if we can take that model and try and understand it, what attachment is, where it comes from, how primordial it is, then we can begin to work with it one step at a time, according to our own capacity. It's very fascinating. So the general attitude of this trying to give up the 8 worldly dharmas is, it's the fierce practice of the great bodhisattvas. And why? Is because they're trying to do whatever they can to rip out the delusions from the mind. Why? Because that's preventing them from becoming a Buddha, which is when they can be of benefit to others. And that's what's so hard too, when you read the levels of compassion. It's hard to imagine. I mean, for example, Lama Zopa, he's renowned for never sleeping. He never lies down. Even when he had a stroke and he was in hospital, he looks like he might nod off sometimes, but he never lies down. And as Roger, his attendant, said, for Rinpoche, sleep is a disgusting waste of time. So that's the attitude of these high beings. And it's just hard to hear it. We either feel guilty and we block it off, or we just think they're mad, This is too hard to imagine being like this, which is really why it is inspiring. Every time this book, I started years ago, and then Tenda Zopa told me to stop, and I'm doing it again. And I would read a couple of chapters sometimes in teachings. People are so moved to hear, first of all, about this person, and then also the way his disciples related to him, the Guru devotion. It's just very moving and inspiring. And I know in Lama Yeshe's book on Mahamudra, which came out in Wisdom last year, and I edited that too, so happy to do it, Lama talked about how we can hear all the teachings, but when you can hear life stories of people, who actually live this way, it's very inspiring. It makes it real. So, and I know this Geshe-la Contract. I've seen him, I've been around him, When you hear what he did, driven by compassion, driven by determination, driven by this renunciation, driven by this incredible bodhicitta and this wisdom, then he's the culmination of everything you're trying to do. You say you're a Buddhist, and then you read these examples, you go, oh my God, look at that, but I can do it, but slowly, 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 slowly. You go in your own pace towards it. In other words, it shows it's possible. You can read all about tennis, but until you see Federer playing, you're not really confident it's possible. But then you see a real person looking like you. Oh, if he can do it, wow, I can do it too. So it's so inspiring. And Lama Yeshe said in this book, he said, I used to love reading about Milarepa. It made me feel that he was a human. If he can do it, so can I. Okay, I can't go off and never sleep. So the best I can do, I try to do it seriously. When I go to bed, I love my bed. All I can look forward to at night is sleep, isn't it? You just love, you can't wait to climb into bed, isn't it? Have a good sleep. So I'm anticipating bed when I'm doing my practice, when I climb into bed and I sink into the mattress, so delicious. Then I say to myself, because there's no way in the universe I could try and sit up and meditate. There'd be no benefit. I'd go mad all night. It's not possible. You know? But I say to myself, may I find sleep disgusting. May I have one day the view. So I program my mind with the thought, may I find sleep disgusting, instead of merging into sleep with total attachment, which is what we do, you know. And it's scary, of course, because I can't bear to think of giving up sleep. Attachment. It's very fascinating. Any questions, you people? Any kind of questions? Any kind of questions?
I have a question.
Good.
Yeah. So you mentioned this feeling of never enough. I'm not enough. Is this like the root of most of or all of my attachments?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
What's the best antidote?
I'm describing the pervasive delusion that runs the universe. So the whole of Buddha's teachings are the answer. Okay. Is it a Buddhist asking that question, or a non-Buddhist? I'm not being sarcastic.
No, a Buddhist.
Is it your question personally?
Yes, like I don't know, if you say it's the whole teaching, okay, but is
Where
there
are you?
anything particular?
Who's asking me? Who's asking me? Zapin.
Here.
So you've never heard the Buddhist teachings and you don't know the answer?
No, I've heard the Buddhist teachings.
Well, then it means you know the answer then. I'm not being sarcastic. The whole path is the answer. Okay. And you've got to go one step at a time. So if this is why you've got to go one step at a time. So, okay, first, I understand you, but do you know that the whole path is the answer or not? I'm not trying to be sarcastic. Do you realize the reason a person studies Buddhism is so that you can do this? Do you realize that's the reason? Okay. Is that why you're a Buddhist? You want to try and give up your delusions and become a nice person? Is that why you're doing it? Sabine?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm being very sincere. Well, the whole path, practicing the whole path, it's like you saying to me, well, if I can play a backhand, what's the secret to a good backhand? I mean, you've got to learn all the tennis. I can give you a specific one when you put your thumb there instead of there, but you've got to learn all the tennis, don't you? You can't just do a backhand in isolation. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So the broad answer is, well, I mean, sure, but even, okay, a specific answer, interestingly, a specific answer is, you better know what attachment is. So do you know what attachment is, Sabine? I'm not being sarcastic again. It's a real, I don't want to spoon feed you with a simple answer. So do you know what attachment is? Do you recognize it in yourself?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Tell me what you think it is. Tell me what you think it is. What do you think attachment is? Roughly. Just say whatever you feel. It's okay. What do you think it is?
Only wanting the good stuff.
What, darling? What?
Wanting the good things. The good food, nice weather, good job.
And what happens when you don't get it? So good, okay, good. So what happens when you don't get it?
My mind goes like, oh, why can I not have this? When can I have this?
Right. So that's attachment and aversion. So, okay. So the more, it's like, what is a weed? You have to learn botany, then you'll learn, and then you'll be able to recognize it. And then as you learn more botany and more botany and more botany, you'll keep identifying more weeds and more weeds and more weeds and how they function. So just keep moving. So to be specific then, in general, which attachment are you talking about? Attachment to being loved, attachment to food, attachment to being praised. Which one in particular are you thinking about? Which one? Give a particular answer, just an example of attachment. Give an example in daily life where you recognize attachment and how it causes you misery.
Well, I recognize this feeling of never, or I'm not good enough.
Okay, good. Okay, let's discuss. Okay, perfect. All right. So do you understand how that's a function of attachment? Can you imagine how that's a function of attachment or not? And be very sincere with me. If you don't, say you don't.
No, I don't think
Good. I understand. It is difficult, darling. I promise you. It is difficult. We can see when it's overt. We can see, oh, that cake's so delicious, and you have to try and control yourself because you know it's not going to be good for you. We can see the agitation of the attachment then. Or you can see if a person a person insults you and you feel hurt, you can recognize it's because you were craving to be praised. But this dissatisfaction is the deepest level, and it really is the consequence left over from previous lives of always following attachment. In other words, think about this now, it's reasonable. If you're addicted to something as obvious as like cigarettes, I remember cigarettes, okay? I was never addicted to alcohol. I was a bit addicted to marijuana, but mostly cigarettes. I mean, I used to smoke like 18 Marlboros a day at my worst, right? And it was a really obvious attachment, wasn't it? It was as soon, you crave the cigarette. So you have the cigarette and then you're puffing it in, and then you have to get exhausted. You have to put it out. But then very soon you begin this craving again, don't you? So look at that feeling of craving. That's dissatisfaction. So what does craving mean? Technically, for me, it was craving for that next cigarette. So that feeling of pain is the feeling of not being satisfied. Would you agree with that? Not being satisfied, and it's a very vivid not being satisfied, isn't it? Because you're like a food. If you're really addicted to coffee, let's say, when you haven't got the coffee, or you're thinking about it all the time, aren't you? So it's a very vivid feeling of feeling really unhappy. That's dissatisfaction. And it's what is it coming from being addicted to the coffee. So the assumption is when I have the cigarette, when I have the coffee, what it does alleviate temporarily the pain, doesn't it? It alleviates it. And you go, oh, wow, that was a really good cup of coffee. But then eventually it starts to become craving again, doesn't it? So you have to have another cup of coffee. So obviously what you're really doing, every time you drink coffee, you're increasing the craving, which means you're increasing the dissatisfaction. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So waking up in this life with this primordial sense that I, in general, am just not enough. I don't have enough. I don't achieve enough. I'm not good enough. That's the most primordial level of attachment, and everybody has it. And it's a bottomless pit. So we naturally in our psychology, I think, assume it comes because mother didn't give us enough love, or your father beat you too many times, or people rejected you. So we keep looking at the external things that might have been a cause. But from the Buddhist perspective, they're more like the symptom. That the main cause is past attachment, always wanting something more and never getting satisfied, because we all know that's true. The more we get, the more we want. So when we know that, we can intellectualize it and imagine, well, okay, I'm dissatisfied with me. So then, okay, now to a simple, immediate antidote, which it does not happen overnight, but we've got to start arguing with that false assumption. You see, our problem is we believe the feeling that I'm not enough. We never question it and say, well, maybe I'm enough actually, maybe I am enough. Some people might, which means they don't have too much attachment. They can be quite content with who they are. Some people are like that. That means they don't have so much dissatisfaction, which means they don't have much symptoms of attachment. They're more content. So contentment is a consequence of not having attachment. So as Lami, as you said, one method is, it sounds hilarious to us, learn to be content with who you are. Now that doesn't mean you don't try again, because we feel, okay, it's a bit like this. It's like you're studying music and you're all enthusiastic and you're studying like crazy and you pass your grade 1 exam. Now, if you've always got dissatisfaction, you'll go, oh, it's only grade 1. I'm hopeless. So then you do get to grade 2. So you'll go, oh, it's only grade 2. You'll never be satisfied. You get to grade 947, you will still be dissatisfied. But the fantasy of attachment is, well, maybe when I get to grade 2, I might be satisfied then. No, you will never be satisfied if you think that that external thing will give you satisfaction. So then what do you have to do? You have to learn to be happy that you got to grade 1. Be satisfied with grade 1. But what we think when we say that is, well, why bother doing grade 2? No, because you'll still want to get better, but you'll be satisfied at each step of the way. That's a really good practice. So it's a bit like you go to the gym. So that what motivates us to go to the gym? Let's say we're overweight and got no muscle tone. So we have a fantasy of a nice new looking me, all gorgeous and beautiful, right? So that's our goal. But if you've really got dissatisfaction, you could get that goal and you still will not be happy because you haven't solved the fundamental problem of always craving something more. So it's to see that it's an internal thing. So be happy with grade 1, delight in grade 1, praise yourself for doing grade 1, but then keep growing to go to grade 2, and you'll be satisfied at each level. So now it's the same with our development as a human being. Right now we're full of dissatisfaction. Right now we're always craving this and craving that and craving the boyfriend and always feeling I haven't got enough. So we've got to try to learn to recognize and tick the boxes. Well, I am doing some practice every day. I am trying to work on my mind. I am trying to control my speech. I am trying to live in my vows. I'm trying to be compassionate. So that's good enough. I'm in grade 1. Be satisfied. Tell yourself you're doing a good job. Don't just believe the view that it's not enough. You've got to argue with it. That's the most direct method every day, baby. Are we communicating?
Yes, thank you.
And don't expect immediate benefit. Don't expect to feel blissful after all. No, it takes a while, honey. It's until we realize emptiness, we really are not going to get rid of attachment, but we can gradually chip away at it. We have to argue because it's a misconception. Because even if we haven't achieved Buddhahood yet, even if you haven't got to become like Federer yet, using that as the analogy, you're working on it. You're working on it. You're moving towards it. Now, if you're just sitting there, like using a gym analogy, if you don't go to the gym and you're just watching television all day, then you've got no reason to be satisfied because you're not doing anything. But if you are doing the work, you learn to be satisfied with the level of work that you've done, because you can only achieve what you've achieved, and be happy with that, and then bring that to the next level. And that's how you learn to grow satisfaction and slowly heal this hole that we feel inside us. Are we communicating, Sabine?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Venerable Bina, we have a question here at Lagzam.
Good, darling. Talk to me. Who is it?
Yeah, thank you.
Who are you?
My name Arseny.
Who? What's your name?
My name Arseny.
Arseny.
Yeah.
Okay, sweetheart, talk to me.
So my question is, how can I integrate like karma idea with my experience? So like specifically.
Start again. I didn't hear you properly. Arseny, come closer to the mic.
Sorry. How can I integrate karma idea with like my everyday karma? With my everyday experience, like specifically, for example, when you say that like if you was hit in this life, there was some reason that you hit someone in past life, or when you say that like
how you integrate it. Okay, good question, Arseny. Okay. So I think what's important there, we have to first look at what philosophy we have now about how we interpret the world. And my sense is, because we're all materialists, we're all philosophical materialists, we're brought up with science, we believe mummy and daddy made us, we believe that what happens to us is good luck and bad luck. I think we have that view, don't we? We don't really know why good things happen. We don't really know why bad things happen, or we do think it's related somehow to us. So when bad things happen and you think you don't deserve it, we get very full of pain. So we've got to just learn the nuts and bolts of how karma ripens. I mean, it's Buddha's whole view of the universe, that every single sentient being, every human, every ant, every monkey, is necessarily every second experiencing the fruits of past actions. So every moment of happiness is the fruit of some action like that you've done before. In just the same way that if you sit down now today and play the piano, you know that your ability to play piano is coming from your ability to play piano before. We don't find that very surprising. We do find it surprising when it comes to experiences and happiness and suffering, because we tend to think that they're random, we don't think there's any logic to it. But for the Buddha, it's a total logical view that runs the universe. So of course, initially we can't prove it because we're not clairvoyant, but the Buddha's telling us this is his own direct experience, and he gives us all the methods of how to eventually prove it. When we get single point of concentration, we can prove it. We can learn to see the past and see the future. So we're taking it now as a hypothesis. So the way to apply it, you have to learn the basics of it. So like I was saying before to Christina, in this life, there are 3 ways that your karma ripens. First, you've got to look into your own mind. So why do I have this tendency to want to think about girls all day? Why do I have the tendency to want to kill the fish? Why do I have the tendency to want to be generous? Why do I have a tendency to always not lie? Because they're your habits you got programmed with. They don't come from your mother. They don't come from your father. They could share them, but they don't come from them. They're yours that you brought with you. So this is already a very powerful practice, because instead of blaming your parents for having this weird view, it's your mind, it's your anger, it's your love, it's your generosity. That's also a very powerful practice. First, knowing your own mind well. So when you study the Buddhist psychological model, you learn to know how the mind works. What is that tendency? And I know it's there because I've done it before. So because you recognize it's a deluded tendency, you want to give it up. So you learn how to change your mind. You learn to be your own therapist. You learn to work on your mind. That's the first way in relation to yourself. Now, when it comes to the outside world, that's more difficult. Because, you might have the karma to get stolen from. Somebody might beat you up at night and shoot you in the head. Somebody might, sack you at work. You might have bad things happen, but also you might have good things happen. People give you things, you get jobs easily, people love you. So when we realize that this is not because we're such a special person, and equally when bad things happen to you from people, you don't think, oh, I'm a bad person, because that's what we do now. You don't judge yourself in terms of that behavior. You know that also is due to past actions. Why people are kind to you? Because you've been kind in the past. Why people give you things is because you've been generous in the past. Why do bad things happen? Why does somebody hold you up at night and shoot you? It's because you've done that kind of thing in the past. So when the bad things happen and the good things happen from out there, you're also able to own responsibility for them, and you don't judge yourself in terms of those things. So people who have very good life, who have lots of money and lots of good friends, they get very arrogant. They think, oh, I must be a special person. Well, they're not a special person. They're lazy and they're a creep. And some people who are really good people, but are not seen as good people, that's this attachment to reputation. They think, I must be a creep, and they get depressed. So when you know it's all due to your past actions, 1 is your own tendencies, and 2 is what happens to you. You own responsibility for them, and you keep your own integrity, and you keep steady in knowing that because someone thinks you're a nice person, it's okay, that's just praise, don't believe it, it's okay. And because someone thinks you're so handsome, that's okay, it's good, nothing wrong, but you don't get too caught up in it. So it's really powerful by applying karma. And the third one is the environmental result. Whether you get sick or whether you're healthy, that's due to your past actions as well. So it's a way of interpreting your life. But you have to understand these 3 ways that karma ripens, not just a big lump of karma. You've got to be more precise. And we often don't do that. It's really beneficial to do it like that. Do you understand me?
Yeah, I understand, but still I have some confusion, how could it work? Like when you say that 17 millions of people,
Sorry, what? What do you, what's the question? What's the confusion?
For example, when you say that 17 million of people voting to Trump because he did something in past life. So I just try to imagine how this cosmic mechanism was delivering this information.
Okay, stop. Okay, fine, I hear you. Cosmic mechanism. You only say that, isn't it, Asini, because you have the materialist view as reality. Would you agree with that? The view that you have of the world at the moment is the scientific view, isn't it?
Yes.
So that's up to you, Asini. No one's forcing you to have Buddha's view. But what you got to take first is not just think of it as some cosmic hippie trippy idea. You got to decide if you think it's something valid. So how will you do that? Well, you got to start. For a start, you got to start at least knowing intellectually that it's a view that's been around for 3,000 years in the text, even before the Buddha, but in the Buddhist text, it's got highly developed explanation of the whole universe in this way. It's another model of the universe. But you've got to have some confidence. It's not just some hippie idea made up by some idiots and cosmic. You've got to try and get some confidence that is a valid thing. So how do you do that? Well, you start looking at people that you think are valid examples. I mean, do you like the Dalai Lama? Do you think he's a valid example of a good Buddhist? Have you ever seen his talks, seen him at all? Have you done that?
Yeah, I think this motivation by authority. I think it's valid
What?
argument.
What?
Motivation by authority is a valid argument, and yeah, I think it's like
So you
sounds
just got to
reasonable.
look into the examples. I mean, you could hear about anything. If, let's say, 60 years ago in Zurich, you heard about acupuncture, you'd think these people are idiots putting needles in somebody. So we get superstitious. We either believe something because we think it's nice, or we don't believe it. We don't look into it. So we've got to look into it. It might be foolishness, but if you start looking into acupuncture, now it's easy because you see for 5,000 years it's been around and it's a valid body of knowledge. So what you've got to first do is try and see for yourself, is Buddhism a valid body of knowledge? Just theoretically, you've got to look into that. Look into the examples. Look into all the way the Tibetan monastic universities in 1,200 years in Tibet, they study this stuff for 12, 20, 25 years. In India before that. So look into the history a bit to give you some confidence that maybe it could be something valid. Don't just blindly believe it, and don't just blindly reject it, which is what we tend to do. It's up to you, it's up to you to look into it. It might be a load of rubbish, but you've got to see if you've got some confidence that there might be something valid there, to not waste your time to want to study it. And you should do that with every body of knowledge, whatever it might be. That's up to you. That's up to you. Do you understand?
Can you say about yourself that like you have experience or confidence that like this kind of things real and they work?
For me, but personally.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been a Buddhist for more than half my life, about 44 years. And every word I'm telling you, even just what I just said now, that's exactly what I've done. I am not clairvoyant. I cannot say with certainty. I have not seen the past and I can't see the future. But that's one of the first things in Buddhism when you learn about the mind and you learn about the single pointed concentration, or shamatha it's called, this technique invented by the Indians 3,000 years ago, which is a skill that, people are seeing it now in the world. That allows you to go to more subtle levels of your mind so that you can see the past and you can see the future. That's something really easy to look into. So I've done every word I'm telling you. I'm trying to do it myself. So the view I take is, having checked on the people, having looked into it, having attempted to study it, I've made a decision that this is my working hypothesis. This is the view of the universe that I'm trying to use to see, to work with, to use in my daily life. I'm trying to do that as best I can. One day, as I progress spiritually, I eventually will be able to prove it myself. And that has to be the point. The Buddha was a regular guy who did all this inner work, and what he's presented is exactly what he experienced himself directly. It's not from revelation. It's not coming from a creator. Buddhism doesn't have that view. So, if it's valid, then I've got to prove it to myself. There's no other way to do it. There's no other shortcut. We have to prove it to ourselves. And you can only prove something to yourself at one step at a time. You can hear that Einstein will tell you that E equals mc squared. You can't just leap into that and prove it overnight. You've got to start studying 1 + 1 is 2, and then subtraction, and then multiplication. You've got to go one step at a time. Do you understand? There's no choice. There's no shortcut. There's no other method to prove anything to be true. You've got to go one step at a time. But don't waste your time by studying, physics for 24 years and you discover that Einstein's an idiot. You check up first on the teachers, on the examples, on the literature to get some confidence that it looks like it's pretty reasonable. Reasonable people are saying it, and then you commit to seeing it as your working hypothesis. There's no other way to do it. You don't blindly believe it, and you don't just blindly reject it. That won't help. And it just won't help. So that's the approach I've been taking. And that's the only approach for any body of knowledge whatsoever, I would suggest. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. It's just, I have feelings that it's very hard to come to this feeling. Did it happen for you that sometimes you losing this feeling, trust into this idea that, did you get some?
No, all I can do is just keep having confidence in it, and I have to teach it every day and talk about it, but have an open mind. I could end up being wrong. Buddha could be wrong. I'm prepared for that. But so all I can say is it's not it's incremental. It's one step at a time, and there's so much in what Buddhism says that you would agree with anyway. So you take it at your own pace. It's up to you if you want to. And you don't have to be 100% Buddhist. You can be a 1% Buddhist. There's lots of things in Buddhism that everybody agrees with. So, you take what you feel is right, and don't be and just go one step at a time and try and understand the logic of it. It's all you can do. It's all you can do. That's all you can do. You're the boss of your life. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, darling. Thank you so much. What else, people? Anything else? Yes, Adrian. Talk to me. Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute.
I know, exactly. I know. Go on.
Venerable, this has been wonderful. And had just a quick question that sort of tags on to the gentleman there from Switzerland. Is some of that why when I've been a practicing Buddhist, I guess maybe 10 years, but I've bumped into doubt recently. And I'm wondering if if understanding and deity practices or certain things, some resonate and some do not.
Somewhat, Adrian, somewhat.
Some of the practices, the deity practices, some of the prayers will make sense and they resonate, and others do not.
Okay, I understand.
Keep an open mind. I don't shut them out, but they don't speak to me.
I understand that, but that's perfectly reasonable.
Karma?
No, of course it is, but it's more. I mean, yeah, but just forget karma. Everything's karma, but forget that, Adrian. It's actually when you start to look at the Tibetan Buddhist body of knowledge coming from the Indian body of knowledge. It's got this lineage coming from India and the vastness of it and the depth of it. I mean, it's like a little bit mind-boggling. And then we look at the esoteric teachings, Tantra, and a little bit has trickled down into the modern world. But I mean, that alone is such a vast, abstract, unusual body of knowledge. When we start to try and understand it, it's really quite complicated. But so that's why it's so important for us, I think, just to get the essence of the meaning of the different levels. So, the essence of the tantric view, the essence of if we can take attachment. Okay, I understand your point. And of course never mind, I won't say that for a second. It's huge and vast and complex and sophisticated and necessarily quite, the detail of it is incredible. As Lama Yeshe said, it's highly developed technology. It's a whole other level of reality of taking the human mind and the human body, describing it at subtler levels, which is how they posit things in the Vajrayana. It's quite complex. So some of it, of course, will resonate. I mean, you do a nice meditation on Chenrezig, you hear that he's compassion, you hear his mantra, you can sing the mantra and you can feel compassionate. Wonderful. But you start looking at more other things and it just seems abstract because we can't get our head around it. That's completely understandable. So in general, the whole attitude, like I'm saying to Asani, the whole attitude, whether it's the simplest level of teachings or the most advanced, we've got to have some confidence that there's some people, I think this is the crucial one. If you just read about this in isolation and you look around the world and you see nobody doing it, nobody practicing it, then I think it would definitely, you could say it's at the level of myth. Are you seeing my point here? If you read all about tennis, but you never meet a single tennis player, no one plays tennis, I think you should start to have doubts about tennis. The plot has gone. You've lost the lineage. So if you can be confident, like someone like, for me, I always find the Dalai Lama so appealing because he's so down to earth, so ordinary, so practical. I mean, all these amazing talks the last 40 years with scientists, bringing in all kinds of bodies of knowledge. He's incredibly easygoing. He's not like typical Tibetan because they're very different. He's just down to earth. For me, then I hear that he's one of the greatest scholars, the greatest Vajrayana practitioners. It doesn't matter if I don't understand. That's my point. I find that so powerful an example. If you can meet one person like Federer, you can have confidence tennis is real. So that, for me, is the big one. And then it gives you confidence that it is possible. So then you take it according to your own pace, But it's like, again, if you heard about E equals MC squared, but you never heard a single physicist ever talk about it, then it's lost, it's gone, it's just myth. And that's often how we think of religion, it's just myth. So people say, I can believe what I like, we make up just garbage, But if it is a coherent body of knowledge, there's got to be real examples out there who have the proof of the pudding. And if there are, they look like they are, you do your checking, that gives great confidence. And then you just start plodding away at your own pace. Because that means it's a living lineage, it's not dead. That to me is so powerful.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dom. Who else, people? Time to go nearly. I'm so sorry. What else? Okay. So then, okay. All right. So let's look at the one of the first pair of attachment, the one of always wanting nice feelings. And then the second, your nice feeling doesn't come. So attachment is always trying to adjust everything for the body to be comfy. Just think of the body as an example. The attachment is always adjusting, working with the other parts of our mind as well to make sure the external world, like here in New Mexico, where I'm in Santa Fe, it's very lovely here, and the kind person's given me their house, and it's got wonderful heating in the floor for the cold days, and it's got wonderful silent AC for the hot days, because you get both here. So, you know, I can see the millisecond it gets too warm, I put the AC on. The millisecond it gets too cold, I put the heater on. So that, because you can, because everything is like that. Look, when we are in the car now, when I was a kid, we didn't have heating in our car. We had holes in the roof, 7 little children, there was a dog. You put up with the cold. We didn't have heating in our house. I remember shivering when we had our bath in this freezing cold bathroom in a house that had no heating and no cooling in the summer. We just lived with it. You live with it. You get used, you shiver. So now, because we just press buttons, but look how neurotic we are when you can't get the perfect temperature. I mean, the way once you would have asked for a cup of coffee, now you go to Starbucks and it's like you have to have a degree practically to get the coffee you want, and they want to please you. So I asked for my middle size, my 8 ounce, I used to, 8 ounce with no froth, you know, ristretto, double shot. If I could, I'd have a medium bean, not a black bean, but they won't give you that. And I want honey in it. They will do exactly what I want. And we pride ourselves in being geniuses at doing these intricate things to make people happy. But what we're doing, we are making people happy. We are getting what we want. But because it's so, what we've done is it's also dangerous, because the second you can't get it, you become freaked out. That's why we're all, literally, I'm not joking. This is how attachment works. Add attachment to our intellectual cleverness. Being technically brilliant is not attachment. That's because we're technically brilliant in the West. So you add technical brilliance to attachment and you have our insane world, where it's on a knife edge every second, where if you don't get what you want, you go mad. Look at the crazy world. We have created all of us junkies. We demand everything to be perfect every single second. And the millisecond you can't get the right temperature, you go to sue somebody. It's outrageous. I mean, it's just too shocking. That's what attachment does. So it's our cleverness is what invents all these things, but it's to fulfill our cravings. So if we can just practice, I mean, you know, another example, we were talking last night for the San Francisco Center about this trek we lead. The last 3 years, a woman in Sydney, Christine, asked me to help her do it. We go up to Lama Zopa's cave up in the mountains in Solokhumbu, north of Namche Bazaar, about 4,000, 7,000 meters. How much? 7 3s are 15. 7 3s. No, 6 meters. I forget. Quite high. You know, it's difficult. Quite high. So anyway, it's just the main reason it is so intensely suffering for most people. You know, 30 of us go every time. The last one we did was last year. Of course, this year we couldn't do it. We hope to do it next year. We walk 4 days from Kathmandu, 4 or 5 hours a day up the mountains, you know, and you get up to Laudo. And all I know is in my life, I've never walked up mountains. I've never walked up hills. I don't much care. So for me, the main experience, yes, I can see the mountains are lovely. Yes, Laudo is so special. Lama Zopa's cave is amazing. We did all these practices. When you remember it afterwards, you remember the feeling, how marvelous, how special, how holy. But the hell of every day walking up those mountains, exhausted, unable to breathe. I mean, my physical body was being attacked. My senses were being attacked. So it's really hard to have a happy mind because your body is unhappy. That's called attachment. That's called attachment, because I'm a junkie to have a nice feeling in my body. I don't want to have to walk up mountains and puff and pant and get exhausted, you know. So every second of the suffering we all had, we all agreed it was because our attachment wasn't getting what it wanted, which is comfort and hot water out of taps and magical buttons that give you everything you want in a millisecond, which we are completely used to. So this is what's interesting. Karmically, this is the fruit of incredible generosity in the past, that we can get whatever we want. So you should always delight in that, but then we become attached to it, and that's what destroys it, you know. So that we can see ordinary life. ordinary life, just having happy feelings in the body and not having, and trying to, so attachment is always wanting the happy feelings. And then the second the knee hurts, the temperature's too low, you adjust it, because attachment kicks in now. The attachment stops craving nice feelings, and now attachment changes to stop having unnice feelings. So attachment never stops. It's running the show every second. And all Buddha's saying is the extent, you know, this place between having what we want and getting what we don't want, that's when aversion arises. So what the result of attachment getting what it wants is definitely a temporary feeling of, wow, I've got a nice coffee, I've got a nice temperature, phew, it feels lovely here. We get that. But then the second attachment doesn't get what it wants, that what kicks in that second is called aversion or anger. So attachment and aversion, bare bones names of states of mind for the Buddha, run our universe. And all the other states of mind is a very detailed map of the mind they have. They all stem from these, you know. So attachment is the one that continually is looking for adjusting to get the nice feelings. The second it doesn't get the nice feeling, aversion kicks in, and then you get distressed. And that's life. And the trouble is, though, you see, attachment is multifaceted. First of all, it's this primordial dissatisfaction. I'm not enough, I don't have enough, which is what drives us to go to the next level of attachment, which is the craving, the yearning for something. There's something missing, so you're looking hungrily out there, like an emotional hunger. And depending on the karma you have, it'll be boys or handbags or money or food or whatever it might be, you know. So then the next level of attachment is to have the emotional hunger. And then the next level of attachment is to control and manipulate to get it. And the next level of attachment is to then grasp at it as mine, possessiveness. So it's emotional hunger, dissatisfaction, emotional hunger, controlling, manipulating, expecting, massive expectation, and then possessing. And this is all a function of attachment. So it will get what it wants sometimes, but then it doesn't last, it disappears, and then aversion arises. So aversion is multifaceted. The most volatile level of aversion is just straightforward anger, shout, yell, and kick, scream, the obvious level. The overt level. More mild levels of aversion we never even pay attention to, but most of us have: irritated, annoyed, upset, frustrated. We spend our lives being annoyed, irritated, upset, frustrated. You don't go to your therapist, oh, I got annoyed today. I tell you to shut up, you know. They only want to see you when you want to have violent anger and kill yourself or kill your boyfriend. But we don't pay attention to these mild levels. Well, this is where going between happy feelings and unhappy feelings, attachment and aversion, 1,000 times a day. So even more subliminally, more primordially, deep inside, aversion becomes depression and despair. It's a build-up, you know, they all build up. So we know all these words, attachment. We don't know attachment and aversion, but we do know anger, annoyed, irritated, frustrated, depressed. That's all anger, variations of anger. And anger is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants, you know. So we're living in this. This is driving us. All our good qualities are there too. Our love, our kindness, our compassion, our intelligence, our joy. They're all there. They're our saving grace. But they're polluted and dragged down by this other stuff that we just don't pay attention to. Because in our world, they're considered normal parts of a normal person. So we don't ever factor them in and we don't try to work on them. We just think, oh, that's okay, I'm a normal person. Well, Buddha says, no, they're mental illnesses. I'm not kidding. It's a great term. Mental illnesses. He calls them afflictions, which is a very medieval word, you know. Mental problems. We've all got them. Join the universe. So we've got to go more deep inside. That's the whole point, because this is internal, every second, every second, every second. This is really sophisticated, subtle work, you know, internally. We do the best we can, one step at a time, you know? One step at a time. It's 5:02, gone like a dream. But I cheated you today, and I gave you 15 minutes less. Are there any questions? No questions? We can finish with a little meditation again, just a little meditation. So just do a concentration meditation. Just watching. Watching the mind again. I don't know if we did that last week, but we'll do it again. And I want to talk next. I'll remember next week what I talked about today. I'll try and remember. I'm so sorry. I was very naughty not doing that, not checking. But I'll do that. But I want to Yeah. It'd be very nice to talk about just the nature of mind, this mind that has this attachment and aversion, and the Buddhist view of the mind and how it does function, and why these states of mind can be removed from the mind. I'll talk about that. It's very inspiring. When we study the Buddhist model of the mind, it gives us real confidence, that we can change our mind. We'll discuss that next week. I promise that. Maybe Talia can remember and remind me, but I will email me, remind me what I just said. We'll talk about the nature of mind, and I'll quote from Lama Yeshe's Mahamudra book, okay? But I'll recall it myself as well. So let's just close your eyes, be very natural. Don't think you're going to do anything holy. Just close your eyes, keep your body upright, and just for 3 or 4 minutes, quality minutes, make a determination that you're just going to pay attention to your thoughts, whatever pops up in your mind. Don't try to conjure thoughts. Don't try to have thoughts. Don't argue with them. Don't wonder what they are or where they are. Just whatever arises in your mind, pay strong attention to just that. Just that's all. No discussion, no argument, no discussion, no discursive thoughts, nothing. Just watch your thoughts. That's it. But keep your mind sharp and focused. Just pay attention to your thoughts, to the mind. Don't space out, just stay focused. Okay, just relax now. It's about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes. Better to have 3 minutes of good focus than 20 minutes of spacing out, So maybe we can talk about meditation later as well, why we do it, how to do it. Okay, you darling people in Zurich and everywhere. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry I was late. So I'll make up for it next week. Thank you, everybody. Jangchul Semchog Rinpoche, Ma Kie Panam Ke Guchi, Ke Panyampa Me Payang, Gong Ne, Gong Du, Peba Shog. And just think, all these seeds we've planted, because the Buddha's view is nothing goes astray from our mind, everything gets stored, which is very interesting. So it becomes accessible to us. So every single thought we've had is a seed, basically. We've planted all these seeds in this 2 hours, hour and 3/4. So we think maybe nourish these seeds from this moment forward with our effort to practice, to think about all this, to go one step at a time, develop our marvelous potential, so we can be a better to others. Think like that. Thank you, darlings. Much love.